Today we're going to review negative numbers. So what do we need to do? We need to talk about addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Let's start with addition. Remember that a positive plus a positive is going to give us a positive number. If we have a negative plus a negative, then we have a negative. But what happens if we have a positive plus a negative? Well, that really depends. Here's what it depends on. It depends on which of the two numbers is bigger. So let's say I had like -8 plus 2. So when I look at -8 and 2, the one that's bigger is really the 8. So when I have a negative and a positive, I'm really going to subtract. So -8 plus 2, I'm going to do 8 minus 2 is 6. And because the 8 is bigger, I'm going to keep the sign. So anytime I have a positive and a negative, I'm going to end up subtracting. And then I take the sign of the bigger number. Let's try that a few times. Here I have 7 plus -10. So I first subtract. 10 minus 7 is 3. The 10 was bigger, so I make the answer negative. I have 12 plus -4. Again, 12 minus 4, I'm subtracting. I get 8. The 12 was bigger, so the answer stays positive. I have -8 plus -15. Well, they're both negative, which means the answer will also be negative, which is -23. You have calculators. It's absolutely fine to put any of this in your calculator. When you put it in the calculator, remember there's a difference between subtraction, which is an operation. So the keys on your calculator, there's a plus, a minus, a multiply, a divide. So this sign says subtract. Also on your calculator, you should see a button that looks like this. This one shows you that it's a negative. This gives the sign to the number where this other one says subtract. Sometimes calculators also have a plus minus button that says let's change the sign. Let's go back and talk about subtraction. So with subtraction, we can always just change it to addition, and we already know the rules. What we want to look at here is like 7 minus 4. So I'm going to change that minus sign into an addition, but when I change the subtraction to addition, I kind of make it a plus and then carry the negative over. So I'm changing the sign of what happens next. Same thing here. If I have 6 minus -2, I want to change the negative into a positive, which then changes the sign of the next number. Now it becomes addition. So 6 minus -2 is the same as 6 plus 2, which is 8. If I have -8 minus -24, again, that negative becomes a positive. So I have -8 plus 24. The signs are different, which means I'm really subtracting, which gives me 16. 24 is bigger, so I leave my answer as positive. Let's go on to multiplication. With multiplication, we can go back to looking at the signs. So a positive times a positive is positive. A negative times a negative is also positive. But a positive times a negative will give me a negative. I kind of look at how many negatives I have. So if I have an even number of negative factors, I'm going to get a positive answer. Think about it as like pairs, right? So the pairs cancel out and become positive. But if I have an odd number of negative factors, then my answer is going to be negative. Let's say I have 4 times -12. Well, I have one negative, which means the answer is negative. 4 times 12 is 48. Then I have -3 times -2 times -10. So see how there's 1, 2, 3 negatives? 3 is odd, so my answer will be negative. 3 times 2 times 10 is going to give me 60. I have -1 times +4 times 7 times -3. Here I have 2 negatives, which says my answer is going to be positive. I'm just writing the positive there to kind of like overemphasize the sign. Then 4 times 7 times 3 gives me 84. Again, you can use your calculators. That's absolutely fine with me. Sometimes it might be easier to do it in your head or to do the sign in your head than having to type all the negative signs in. Division works just like multiplication, meaning if there's 2 negatives, it's positive. If they're both positive, it's positive. But if I have an odd number of negatives, my answer will be negative. So take this first example. I have -24 divided by 8. There's one negative, so my answer is going to be negative. 24 over 8 is 3. -32 divided by -4. Well, 2 negatives says my answer will be positive. 32 over 4 is 8. Then I have 360 divided by -15. So I have one negative, means my answer is negative. 360. Let's divide that by 15, and I get 24.